Welcome everyone to another sound control webinar, this time on storytelling. This webinar was already planned for the end of March or the beginning of April, somewhere around that time, but well, was postponed to today. So welcome. It would be nice if people could turn their camera on so that we can see each other. I know the connection is stable enough to support that. Please keep your mics on mute so that we do not suffer from too much background noise. This presentation is recorded and will be published on the website after this meeting. So if you really don't want to be on screen and saved, then perhaps keep your camera on mute, keep your camera off. And with that, I will give the floor to the first presenter of today. At the end of this presentation, there is a very short Mentimeter questionnaire to get some additional topics from you, because we are planning to organize more webinars the coming year, especially during the period in which we cannot physically meet to keep in touch. So please stick on to the end and share your thoughts on interesting topics for the presentation. So Tanya, with that, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I hope you can all see the presentation now. Yeah? Okay, yes. So hello in my name as well, and welcome to our second webinar. In this brief introduction to storytelling, we will talk about what storytelling is and why it is important for science. Then Egle will present some important differences between different groups of stakeholders specific to our cost action. And after that, I will share some tips on how to write an effective story. And I have to say that my part of the presentation is based on the Cost Academy workshop presented by Professor John Copley, who won several awards for science communication. And then finally, Jorn will give a brief introduction to using Slack, and we hope to continue our work on sound control stories there. We now also have a channel for storytelling on Slack, and we have already posted today's presentations there. So the aim of this webinar is to facilitate writing sound control stories for a specific stakeholder in a professional journal in your local language. So the goal of telling stories in general is to entertain, but besides that also to educate in an interesting way, especially when it comes to cultural heritage and teaching the moral values. We all know this, but in science we use a completely different approach that is only suitable for a scientific community. And since we want to convey facts and how we got to them, that's perfectly okay. And the main difference between scientific writing and storytelling is that storytelling speaks to people. It connects with them and it considers their emotions and interests. So the most important part of storytelling is that you have to know your audience. And for our cost action, main audience we want to connect with are farmers, veterinarians, and policymakers. So we can use storytelling to motivate them, to read about our work, and also to keep them reading. So when writing a story, keep in mind that people you want to reach are most likely busy. They are overwhelmed by the information available. And we also have to keep in mind that they lack certain knowledge about our field. So before you start writing, you need to think carefully about what you want to achieve with your story. And it might not be just to inform people or for them to remember something, but at least in our case, it might be that we want them to know about the importance of our research, to get support for funding, and to change their thinking or behavior about specific topic, especially when we communicate to veterinarians or farmers. And also to help them understand why change in policy is needed. So really think about your goal and who are you trying to reach. So, sorry. To better understand your audience, you need some mind reading. And you can do that really easily by asking some questions. And these are the questions. What knowledge does your audience have? What problems are they facing? What questions might they be asking about our topic when they read about it? And when did you last share an education on our topic with them? If you want to communicate effectively, you also need to think about what will they think when they will read your story. So the simple answer is they will think, what is this story about and why should they care? So your story will be interesting to them. That is known fact if it relates to a topic that everybody is interested in, and that's always and we are always interested in things that relate to us. So our daily lives, how the world affects us, how we affect the world, and how the world works, and our place in the world. So now we'll talk more about stakeholders for our cost actions, and this part goes to Egle. I will stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Tanya. I will share my screen now. And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So hello, everyone. My name is Egle, and I will briefly describe you, as Tanya presented, our actions target groups when we are trying to reach as many relevant people with our sound control activities as possible. And of course, to efficiently reach the target groups of interest, we need to identify them, understand what is the background knowledge they have on the topic sound control focuses on, and also we need to understand what kind of everyday challenges they face every day. And finally, we can offer a solution or assistance of our action solving their everyday challenges. To begin with, as Tanya also presented, target groups in science communication are extremely important to actually apply some very important results of the research, meaning that an outstanding scientific knowledge and innovation are nothing if they are not shared among relevant people who can apply it in their everyday life or in the entire system. And we can divide target groups to kind of a wider and a more narrow approach, as we can reach everyday life of somebody, for example, a small unit dairy cattle farm, but we also, with the target groups, we can reach an entire system with the correct communication and reach decision makers that can make a bigger systematic difference. To identify sound control target groups, we actually need to come back to the main aim and the vision of the action. As the project focuses on output-based surveillance control programs for non-regulated cattle infectious diseases, the main three stakeholders, as also Tanya presented, are cattle farm owners who grow and raise livestock, cattle, veterinarians who take care of these animals, and decision makers who are responsible for all the free statuses of the disease, national level control program, funding, and many other things. The second step after identifying the target groups would be to understand the background, their background and their knowledge. So according to the Eurostat's data, around 40% of the farmers and farm managers, including all people who grow crops and raise livestock, have a low-level education. More than 50% have medium, and less than 10 have a higher level education. In addition, we can see in the graph that usually farm managers across Europe have mainly practical experience, and only very little have some basic or full agricultural training. Where about the veterinarians, of course, must have a degree because the profession requires degree, which is mainly standardized in the European Union following the work of European Association of Establishments for Veterinary Education. And finally, the decision makers that work in the field of veterinary services are usually licensed veterinarians or definitely with a higher level education. And this information about their background education indicates to us that farmers have a very good practical knowledge of all agricultural processes, animal husbandry and production. But they definitely might need some easy to understand explanations for non-regulated diseases that maybe weren't known to them. Where about the veterinarians have a very good knowledge of the diseases, diagnostics, treatment, but they might need some more explanation on regulations and standards. And finally, the decision makers, of course, have a great knowledge on the standards and the law, but they might need some more in-depth explanation how some of their decisions can be applied in the practice. And when the target groups are identified and when we have a basic understanding about their knowledge, we might start to think about their everyday challenges and problems. Of course, when thinking of farmers, first thing that comes to mind is production. And we can say that if some diseases are present in the herd, the production losses increase, the costs for care and treatment increase together with morbidity and mortality rates of the cattle. In addition, we can also think of some sort of sociological aspects because farmers might feel a bit ashamed or not good enough when a rare disease is present in their farm comparing to others. Veterinarians kind of blend in both target groups, but of course their main topic is animal health and welfare. And their everyday challenges as a veterinary doctor are, of course, at the moment, antimicrobial resistance, prevention, and this is what vets work on a daily basis. However, the decision makers come here with a slightly different point of view, and their focus is on a country systematic level, and they work with the disease control programs. Their main challenges are safe animal trade, and of course, freedom from disease statuses of the country. At this point, we know the target groups of our action, their basic knowledge of the industry, processes, and some examples of their everyday problems. Now we can finally try to approach them with the work of self-control in relation to their problems. With the farmers, we of course can again target production versus production losses with the disease, when disease is present, and production increase due to effective disease control. Also, in here we can again mention those sociological aspects because farmer could be very proud of innovative decisions and good disease control in their farm. Veterinarians here could, of course, benefit from very good prevention of diseases, happy and healthy animals, and of course, less used antimicrobials. And lastly, some of the main points when approaching decision makers could be cost-effective surveillance, safer trade of animals, and potential disease-free country statuses. Of course, finalizing my presentation, all those target groups are very closely related, and some topics and some problems kind of blend together, and they are very similar. However, when trying, with a very good knowledge of our target groups, we can reach them in the very efficient way. And to end my presentation, I would like to remind that there are already a lot of materials to work with and write something from in sound control website deliverable section. And some papers of sound control work are already published in Frontiers in Veterinary Science research topic. So there are quite a lot of information to present in our own language to veterinarians, farmers, decision makers of our countries. So I would like to thank you everyone for attention, and I will again give the floor to Tanya.
Thank you. And now that we know our stakeholders better, let's talk a bit more about writing an article for them. Just a second. Okay, that should work. So because the attention and time of our stakeholders is constrained, the best option is to write a short article for them. So the first thing in these short articles, we need to answer the questions: what our article is about, and why should our audience care about it. For example, we can start the article with researchers at XY Institute have found something, and this will enable something. So this can be the first statement. Another example could be, I am investigating, or we are investigating something, and this could lead to something. So first we present the main thing. So we started at conclusions of scientific article. So the structure of our story is best described with this with structure of short article, and this approach is best for the article with 500 to 800 words. So this is inverted triangle, where the structure of academic paper is turned around. So in this short popular style article, you need to start with the most important and interesting fact. Then you continue with increasing details and decreasing importance, significance. And when you get to the point where reader is no longer interested, you just stop writing. Here, you don't need to write any conclusion. Conclusion is at the beginning. So in this short article, in first paragraph, you write the most important thing in first 2 sentences. Then you answer these questions. What is the key finding? With these 2 sentences, what is the problem question you are investigating? And why does it matter to your target audience? So this can be a good, good framework how to start. Just start answering this question. In second paragraph, you explain what has the problem been until now, and you give the essential information and just the essential information about the background. And in the middle, in the main body, in the main paragraph, you explain what you are actually doing and how you are doing it. So here we start to talk about, for example, our sound control cost action. And in the final paragraph, you explain where your work is going. You explain details of application and implementation from the question, so what? So why should they care? And why you are doing it. And now just a couple of tips for writing. And the first one is do not try to explain everything about sound control in one story, in one short article. Instead, focus only on one or two key facts or part of sound control. The part that is most interesting for your target audience is the right one, not the one you're interested in most. So for each target group, the story can be told from different angles, even if we talk about the same part of sound control. The second important tip is that that it's always better to use active voice. So the only exception should be if you have a really good reason to use passive or if it's something really technical. Otherwise, always stick to active. And the third important tip is to avoid scientific jargon, which I know it's really hard. So try to use more everyday words rather than overly formal ones. Try to avoid words with different meanings. For example, in our situation, that's probably model. When you write, think about your particular audience and about the country, about your country. There are 3 ways how to avoid the jargon. The first one is, as we use in scientific writing, define the term and then we use it. But for a short article, for a short story, this is the worst option. Better options are to define the term and then don't use it. In this way, you give your audience a new knowledge, but the text is still clear, even if they forgot the term. And the third option is not to use the term at all. They don't need it for their everyday life, so use only simpler and longer wording for the term. The fourth and the final tip for writing is that you omit unnecessary words. So if a sentence is clear without one word, just don't use that word, delete it. And here on the slide, you can see some examples for that. And now I'm finished with my presentation. And I invite Jorn to share his screen and present our Slack.
Thank you, Tanya. Now, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so Tanya mentioned that we would like to use Slack, and Slack is a communication platform. And yeah, now you will say, oh, another platform, why do we need that? And at the moment, we all use mails, and that's fine. But I want to explain you the advantages of Slack and why to use it, how to start Slack, how it is organized, and then I will show you a short live presentation. So Slack is a group messaging communication software. So yeah, there are so many different tools that can be used, like TeamViewer, Dropbox, whatever. And Slack uses to combine the advantages of all of them. So you can have a chat, here you can see a chat, you can exchange different types of files, you can add code snippets, or you can share links. And so you have all in one platform, and you can discuss, and then you can share files. So we prepared our presentation today with sharing these files. I will show you later on. And the advantage is that the chats are always available. In our institute, our Outlook is limited to a certain amount of messages, so you have to store it somewhere, and sometimes it's hard to find everything for one topic. And you can integrate apps like Google Drive, Zoom, WebEx, etc. So how is Slack organized? In the beginning, you have a workspace, and a workspace means a certain topic, for example, sound control. And this is a closed workspace for all partners working together on this topic. And within this topic, you have different channels. So, for example, a channel for each working group. And each channel can be, you can define who should work in this channel. And then you have threads, and threads are these messages to exchange between people. And then you have section with files, and there you can see all files that are shared in all channels and you can search within it. And you can search for different people, and you can send direct messages between partners. So how to start Slack? And if you go to our website, here in the top right, you can see a very small button, Join Slack. And if you click on that, you will be forwarded to Slack. And if you haven't done this before, so maybe you don't have access to it. If you don't have access to Slack already, please send a message to Tanya and she will give you access. And here you can see that is a start page of Slack, and here you have different threads and different channels. I will go into a detail later on. You can see all people in this Slack, and you can send direct messages. And if you look in detail on that, you have first a section where you can see all unread messages. Then you can see answers on topics you entered. Then you can see all your direct messages between partners. Then you see the reactions. Then you can save items and publish them later with saved items. Then you have a channel browser where you can see a summary of all channels, a file browser, and you can see all peoples and of the user groups. And here you can see the channels, and here you can see the channel is for the website, for different working groups. And here you see a log, and this for working group 1, it's a closed working group to discuss. And in the bottom, you can see the people. And when I want to send a message to Egle, then I have to put the @Egle, and he will find Egle's name, and then I can send a direct message to Egle. Okay, now I want to switch to the online presentation. And as I said, now we are on the our website, and I go to Slack. So it opens the last section I read. And here you can see all unreads. I don't have unreads, the threads. And I had a discussion with Jaka about health situation in Europe. Direct messages, there are only few between Egle, Tanya, and me. And if you go to the channels, you can see, as Tanya mentioned, we have a storytelling section, and here you can share different files, and here you can watch these presentations directly in this browser, and you can download it. So it's quite nice, in my opinion, to discuss on these presentations and to share it, and much easier than sending emails. And that's it for Slack. And I think there are a lot of advantages. Unfortunately, we are not using it very often, but maybe this will change after this presentation. So with this, I will give the word to Tanya.
Okay, thank you, Jorn. So my last slide is the aim of this webinar was to tell a little bit about storytelling. Not a lot, we got only to some facts about it. We don't have any examples for you because we would like you and us to write something about sound control, to create a short story for a specific stakeholder in your local language. We will also create something in English so you can see it. We just want you to think about your stakeholder, in which professional journal you would like to publish, and about specific interests that these stakeholders have, and what we would like to reach with this story. And we really want you to use, and we also want to use Slack for this. So I would like to thank everybody for listening. And Inge has something more to say and ask, and then we can have a discussion.